Okay, so yesterday we were speaking about women studying Torah. And I think we covered the whole thing. We're okay. It was a bit short, but I think we covered everything. Yeah.
I just have one more question, if that's okay. So I also heard, like, I don't know if it's a medrash that, like, Yaakov also studied in a yeshiva when he was, like, on the way to...
The yeshiva of Shem and Aver. Yes.
What was the purpose of that yeshiva? I thought you said, like, yeshivas were only made because, like, the fathers...
No, that's for advanced learning.
Okay.
And that was after you know everything.
Okay. Was it Shem and Aver was for advanced learning?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they were prophets.
Okay, sorry.
You know. So was Yaakov, you know, these, who knows what they were learning there. I want to talk about the concept of the totality of Torah. And then we'll be done with Talmud Torah, we'll move on to other mitzvot, but the totality of Torah, which is very, very important. You know, you're in a yeshiva now, and the structure of a standard yeshiva is such that it is Gemara focused. That's what everyone studies. And you're told that that's where it's at. And it's almost as if, like, the rest of Torah is secondary. In terms of one being an accomplished Talmid Chacham, it is generally measured by way of his skills and knowledge in Gemara. You know, that's where it's at. That's only one part of Torah. First of all, there's the written Torah. Where does that fit in? Chumash, Tanakh, the prophets, the scriptures. Where does that fit in? The Rambam writes that you're supposed to spend a third of your time, and the Shulchan Aruch actually writes it as well, based on the Rambam. You're supposed to spend a third of your Torah study time. A third of it you should be studying the written law, a third of it Mishnah, and a third of it what he calls Talmud, which is the Gemara. The truth is, the Gemara says this. But unlike the Rambam, the Baalei HaTosfos not argue, but they say that we no longer do this because what the Gemara referred to when they said Talmud was going in depth. Today we study Gemara, which really has everything in it. It has the Chumash, it has the Mishnah, it has everything in it. Now, the Shulchan Aruch does not follow that Tosfos. The Ramah, which is the Ashkenazi custom, is. And traditionally, Ashkenazim has spent the majority of their time studying Gemara. In recent generations, the study of Tanakh is much more common among women. Or what's called the more modern places. What do I mean by modern? The ones that don't study Gemara. The question is, what happened? This shift, it seems, happened at the beginning of the Enlightenment, where, like the beginnings of the Reform, the rabbis were giving their own interpretations of the Chumash and Tanakh, ignoring the Gemara. So sort of that attitude remained, which is, if you're studying Chumash or Tanakh, you're probably lacking in your appreciation for the oral law's explanation of Chumash and Tanakh. Now, in this day and age, it's not true. And it's very important that everybody knows that they know Chumash and Tanakh. I'm using that as an example. Let's start with Chumash and Tanakh. So why doesn't the yeshiva provide you enough time for that? It's because developing your reading skills and your reasoning skills is something you can only do in yeshiva when you're immersed in it. In other words, it's not just that you're just studying Gemara primarily, because Gemara is more important. It's that that's the place to develop your skills. If you could read a Gemara and understand it, you can pick up any Jewish book, read it and understand it. But you've got to know your Chumash and you have to know your Tanakh. I'll go even further. There's the Medrash. Oh, that's for sermons. Who was it written for? It's part of the oral law. Obviously, there's so much halacha that one has to know. Just to be an observant Jew, there's so much to learn. And ultimately, you've got to find the time to study everything. The yeshiva cannot really give you a complete Torah education because they are responsible for your skills. And they put that at the forefront, even at the expense of you're not being exposed to so much of Torah. So you've got to do it on your own, whether here or when you leave. But make sure you're familiar with the whole of Torah, not just the Gemara that you study. There is a certain aspect to Gemara that makes it superior to everything else, in that the experience of delving into it, of really getting to the bottom of the principle, requires an effort that goes beyond what it takes to understand anything else. And it gives us an opportunity to connect to divine wisdom like nothing else does.
Even like delving deep into like the Chumash with like Rashi and like...
It's not the same because there's so much less discipline. Meaning in the Gemara you're dealing with, there's so many factors that you can't avoid. You can't say, oh, this is what it means, but 1 second, but how does it answer this? And how does it answer that? And you know, there are so many different aspects of any sugya in Gemara where if you're really going to try and understand the principle, and seeing how you can derive it from all of these halachas, you're going to end up going so much more deep than you do in simply reading a medrash and asking yourself, well, okay, what's the message? So it's definitely much deeper. But again, it is not the only thing that exists. Yeah.
Did Christianity's use and study of, as they call the Bible, also impact people being willing to study Chumash and Tanakh?
Probably, but that was way back when.
Mm-hmm.
That was way back when. Yeah, I mean, it's embarrassing, but often when rabbis and priests get together, the priests are quoting verses from all over our, Torah and the scriptures, and often the rabbis don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, but they're really into it. I brought this up, including the rabbinic interpretation of it.
With the Art Scroll, you said, right?
Yeah, they study.
They study the Art Scroll.
It's now become standard. Among all Christian scholars to use the Art Scroll translation of Tanakh, because they believe the rabbinical scholars invested more than theirs did. Good business. Okay.
What do you think? Oh, sorry. What do you think it would be a good order? You think Tanakh in that order?
So I want to speak about that now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to speak about that now. In Chumash, we read a parsha every week. We finish the entire Chumash over the course of a year. Unless you're willing to dedicate hours every day to Chumash, it's really impossible to get the whole Chumash of the week in a week. Means if you want to keep up, unless you really have that kind of time where you can carefully go through the entire parsha, you're better off learning the Chumash in order. At your own pace, really getting it down well. As far as the prophets go, the Nevi'im, we generally divide the prophets into two groups. They're called Nevi'im Rishonim and Nevi'im Achronim, the earlier prophets and the later ones. The truth is that it is not just the earlier and later. In fact, we'll find that some of the later ones are part of what we call the earlier ones. And that is, there are within the prophets, there were two styles, which is based on the prophecy they received. Something like the book of Joshua, Yehoshua, Shoftim, book of Judges, Shmuel Aleph, Shmuel Beis, Samuel 1 and 2, Malachim 1 and Beis, and Aleph and Beis, Kings 1 and 2. They are basically relating the history of the Jews with the word of Hashem here and there. The prophet was told this and the prophet was told that. As opposed to Nevi'im Achronim, such as Yeshayahu, Yirmiyahu, Yecheskel. They are very poetic. It's the word of Hashem. And it's not necessarily history related.
Those are the later prophets?
We call them the later prophets. And again, it's not necessarily the chronology. So for example, the book of Yeshayahu and the book of Yirmiyahu both correspond to different eras within the book of Kings. In other words, they took place in different eras in the book of Kings. But if you want the history, you don't read Yeshayahu and Yirmiyahu. If you want the history, you read the book of Kings. A similar thing, Divrei Hayamim, Chronicles. That's part of the scriptures. It's not even part of the Nevi'im. It's part of Ksuvim, the scriptures. And that is a very quick synopsis of all of Jewish history, actually all of history leading up to the destruction of the first temple, beginning with the creation of man. So these are all books where you get a basic understanding of Jewish history, and of course the lessons that we have to learn from our mistakes, our ancestors' mistakes. Nevi'im Rishonim, you've got to know, just to be an informed Jew, to understand our history. It is relatively quick reading. If you have the Hebrew skills, if you don't have the Hebrew skills, then with the translation, it reads very quickly. It's interesting, but it's so important that you go through the Nevi'im Rishonim so that you know Jewish history. It's very, very important. I mean, most Jews don't know their own history. What was the first temple era? What did it look like when we lived in the land of Israel and we had a temple?
We have that the wall right here. Not this wall, but the other wall. Where, if you walk out of the old city.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? And that they talk about that in the.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. You know, what's this Ir David all about? No, it's important. It's very important to know. And by the way, there are so many Jewish kids that are demonstrating with the Palestinians. They really believe that Palestine belonged to the Palestinians, and then came a bunch of European survivors of the Holocaust, came here and drove them away. We were strangers to this land. I mean, just we lived here. But to understand what it looked like, and so many lessons that we can learn from the history of the first temple era, the destruction. The book of Daniel is also studied together with Nevi'im Rishonim, although it's a lot later, because there too it gives you the history of the Jews in Babylon. Yeah.
How would you compare studying like different Nevi'im compared to like a historian's perspective on it?
See, that's just it. You're not interested in a historian's perspective based on archaeology. You are interested in the Torah's perspective on what happened. And the Torah definitely does it in a form of learning the lessons from it. It's presented in a way that we can learn the lessons from our past. Don't make the same mistakes. We made many mistakes. Don't make them again. Nevi'im Achronim is a much more complicated study. It's written very poetically. The prophecies there are very poetic. They're difficult to understand. Those you learn slowly. Not all that much at a time. They're very inspiring, but it's not easy reading at all. Obviously, the breadth of halacha is something to be an observant Jew. You just have to know a lot, so you have to find what you're going to read. There is no reason why you can't read the English collections of halacha. You don't have to necessarily go to the source until you're ready. You want to become a rabbi or something. But until then, just make sure you know what to do. And then there's Medrash, which is really Jewish ethics in the form of stories. Yeah.
What are the sources? Is Medrash just like scattered throughout different things? Like where are the sources?
There's the Medrash. There's Medrash Rabbah, Medrash Tanchuma. There's the Medrash that came, as part of the oral law, and it's based on the Torah. It's based on the Torah and certain other books, meaning certain other books in the Nevi'im or Kesubim. Yeah.
And then where do also you say Chumash, and then the two Nevi'ims, and then writings and Medrash, right? But then what about Kabbalah and like Rabbi Nachman, and then also like other Musar Seifers?
I would differentiate like this. The actual study of Kabbalah is really supposed to come after you know everything else.
How well do you need to know everything else?
Okay. If you're going to say you have to know everything perfectly, then basically what you're saying is we shouldn't ever study Kabbalah.
Exactly.
It means that you have to be well versed in it. It's got to be that you understand the system and you've been exposed to most of it.
Okay.
That's what it means. With regard to, say, Tanya, Rabbi Nachman, what they did is they took the parts of Kabbalah that they felt were necessary for the everyman to appreciate, just to be able to live as a Jew. You don't have to wait until you're well versed in Torah before you study Tanya, Rabbi Nachman. That's a matter of just how much of it you're going to do is a matter of taste, but it definitely adds a lot to your appreciation of your own Judaism. On the other side, there's the books of Musar, and then there are the works of the Gra that really combine Kabbalah with Musar. He turns everything into Musar.
What's the Gra?
What?
What's
Vilna Gaon.
Oh, the Vilna Gaon.
Vilna Gaon, yeah.
Oh, okay.
His writings, his writings on absolutely everything.
Vilna Gaon. Yeah.
And what he has done is really combined the depths of Kabbalah together with halacha and Musar, and turned it all into one big thing of Musar.
Okay.
So long before you consider studying Kabbalah, but reading the books that give you the Kabbalah, like the amount of Kabbalah that everyone should be aware of, how much of it is a matter of taste. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.